Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for our monthly Energies and Opportunities broadcast. We're now in April, and we're going to be looking at the merry month of May 2020.
Yes, we're excited to be with you. Welcome to our Energies and Opportunities broadcast. We provide these broadcasts on a monthly basis for all of you. It's a complimentary service. We'll be together an hour. We're going to be doing a deep dive looking into, we'll look at the remainder of April, and then we'll look into the month of May coming up. We'll see some extraordinary energies. Definitely we're seeing some challenges, although I don't think that's news to anybody right now. And we'll give you some information that will support you, your business, or if you're a professional, to support you to continue on your success track, as well as providing some psychological and spiritual growth opportunities, which are really plentiful this month. So if you've recently joined us at our community, Human Design for Us All, we warmly welcome you. And we do these every month. It's a complimentary broadcast for all of you. We suggest you come to the broadcast live. You can get, the best benefit by attending live, but of course we'll provide a recording so that you can look at it later at your convenience if you can't make it live. But if you're live with us now, go grab a cup of your favorite beverage and enjoy, sit back. You may wish to take notes because we're going to be guiding you weekly through all of the upcoming energies. So 2020, this remarkable year, it's the year of personal empowerment and dramatic change. Now, when we name the year every year with our Energies and Opportunities program. And when we did this, we were working last December. So of course we had no idea the extent of dramatic change that we'd be experiencing, but we knew from the energies that we were going to be seeing dramatic change with an opportunity for up-leveling and personal empowerment right along beside it. So what we did since we began our yearly broadcast, so we do a whole year-long broadcast, usually somewhere in about mid-December, to give you a look at the year coming ahead. And when we did that, of course, we had no idea of current
Pandemics.
yes, current situations. So we thought, well, let's review the broadcast to see, is it reflective of the energies? And certainly it's highly reflective of the energies. So if you haven't watched that yearly broadcast, we suggest you do. What we did, so the yearly broadcast is in our member center for people who are actually members of our Energies and Opportunities community, and I'll tell you in a minute how you can become a member. However, what we did is we produced a 50-minute video that gives you an overview of the year updated in light of the corona pandemic. So you'll find the reference to the Energies and Opportunities program at our website, humandesignforus.all.com/energies-opportunities. Energies-opportunities, that'll take you right there. So you'll learn more about our Energies and Opportunities program, which highlights every week of the year more in depth and gives you a simple to use daily guide to support you to make the best choices of when to take action, when to wait, and when to pivot. It's a powerful guide that our members who use this guide wouldn't go without it. It normally sells for $4.97. What we did when Corona hit is we just slashed the price to $97. So this offer, this special offer, it does expire soon. So we wanted you to know about it. I think it expires on the, what do we say, on the 27th or 28th of it, so coming
3
right up.
days.
Right, so if you will take a moment, go take a look at it and see if you're called to join us. It's an amazing resource at, we're literally doing it at our cost. So join us, and that said, let's begin our report of what we see in the energies coming up.
So we're all aware of the fact that this is a massively transformational time for all of us. And just to see, you know, when things get really, really crazy in life, when the world around us gets really crazy, there's that opportunity. The energy is there for a massive up level in our personal approach to things. What is quite evident, and I tend to look at the human design perspective of things, what is very evident at the moment is there is so much empowerment for individual attention to our lives. So we're bombarded with all kinds of news and inputs and opinions that people reckon of what it is that's going on here in the world. So many misleading statements, so many conspiracy theories, all kinds of things going on at the moment. The most important thing at the moment is that we all pay attention to what's going on inside us as an individual, because that is going to acquaint us with our own truth. And truth is something that is universal, but it can only be appreciated on a personal level. So that is really the energy of this particular time. It's reflected over and over and over again in the human design chart, in the transits or the movements of planets around us at the moment. So that is really the emphasis. As the world gets crazy, find that still place inside yourself. That still place that just knows. So,
Right.
let's get going.
I mean, I think there's nothing more central that we could do this year than that. Because when we have that connection to that still point and to our inner guidance, infallible inner guidance system that we discover through human design, we really have a way to move through life that's going to produce the results that we're really meant to experience, that our soul has called in to experience. So we, in a sense, we just get out of our own way so that we can have the pure experience that our soul intended for us from the very beginning. So we'll take an astrological look, and let's begin with the new moon that happened a few days ago. So it was on the evening of April 22nd. Pacific time. It was actually 7:26 p.m. Pacific time, which would be early in the morning if you're joining us from the European continents and beyond. So that new moon, each time that we have a new moon, we are opening to a brand new cycle for the entire month. So every month it's like a new seed is planted with the new moon, and that seed goes through a process just like any seed does of fertilization, germination, breaking the soil, and then coming up and coming into full bloom, and then back into the earth. So when we look at the cycle in that perspective, and we see that, first of all, the sun entered Taurus, the sign of Taurus, on the 19th of April, and as it did that, that began a whole new 30-day cycle. The new moon then really set that cycle. The new moon just a few days later, on the 22nd, set that cycle in motion. New moon in Taurus, conjoining the revolutionary planet Uranus. So whenever we have a new moon, we see the energies of the cycle and how they'll unfold. When we've got Uranus there with it, Uranus is the awakener to higher states of consciousness. It often does that by tipping the apple cart in our lives, which we've all had our apple carts tipped, right? And in a big way. And so that we stop and we look and we ask and we meditate and we pray and we go within and we seek answers. Now, ideally, we'd be doing that on a regular basis, but so many of us are so encultured to just be on go mode all the time, do, especially in the American culture. So this is a basic pause in time to really take a deeper look. When the sun goes into Taurus, it brings a grounding and practical application to the new energy that was released at the astrological beginning of the new year, which is when the sun went into Aries last month. So with this new moon, We have unusual, perhaps even radical breakthroughs. New ideas are being tested into current reality. Certainly new breakthrough solutions are needed, but which ones are going to bring lasting change? That's really the question of this new moon. And then along with that, echoing this theme, we have the planet Mercury, which has to do with our communication. It's the way that we connect ourselves into our environment and with each other. And we have that in a right angle to Pluto and Jupiter in Capricorn. So Pluto and Jupiter in Capricorn are what are the catalyzing factors for all of the big, huge social change that's been brewing for a long time and is really getting in motion now. When Mercury comes, communication comes into a right angle or a challenging angle, what it does in a sense, especially this one, is it takes our big expansive plans that we had for growth and expansion, and it gives it a bit of a dose of cold water. And that's today, the 25th, that's tomorrow, April 26th. That's when this aspect is exact.
So the air goes out of the balloon, huh?
Yeah, in a sense. I mean, and the bells are ringing. And the reason for this, it's kind of like a yellow blinking light, which is in America, that's a caution light. It means slow down. The light's going to go from green to red, right? So this is what we have right now, this yellow blinking light on our new planets. It's like, slow down. Wait for things to become really clear. Timing is everything. Timing is everything. So you might have the exact right plan for your next great adventure, your next expansion, or your pivot, or your big change, but now is not the time to overextend yourself, and it may not be the time to launch that great new plan. Then the other thing, just a bit of backdrop, is that we've had the planet Venus, which is a planet of love and relationship, and money and flow. It's been in this lovely triangle with Mars. So we've got the typical male-female dance of energy. Now this has been going on since early April, and it's brought, heightened communication and potentially romantic renewal with it. It's also now moving into, Venus is now moving into a right angle with Neptune. And Neptune is our higher vision. It's our capacity to see beyond the conscious self into the spirit being. It's taking us up into those higher realms of consciousness that we can reach through meditation, etc. So when we have these two planets in a challenging aspect, as we do, we can see where we've been out of alignment with our values and maybe been in an illusion around our love relationships. What do we have going on right now? People are at home, they're sequestered with their mates, their partners, their families. It gets really real, really fast when you're together 24/7. So this aspect, I would say, is happening at a perfect time. It's time to review our relationship life. So that's the energy for the month coming up in general, and it starts now.
So looking at the human design perspective from the new moon that we had a couple of days ago, always interesting to see exactly what part of the sky that this new moon and the full moon particularly take place. And this new moon took place when the sun and the moon were together in gateway number 27. Gateway number 27 relates to the whole issue of nourishment. How do we nourish ourselves? So we can think particularly, all right, how do we feed ourselves? What do we drink? But it also extends into what are we reading? What are we putting our attention on? Who are the people that we like to connect with? And so this new moon was taking place in the 27 and the second line. The line is called being accountable. Taking good care of yourself and your needs is natural. You either nourish your needs or generate a reliance on others to provide resources for you. Very particular thing to understand that, how much dependency do we tend to put on other people and other things around us? Are we relying on governments perhaps to take care of us? is that our natural kind of fallback. And the really important thing to think about this is that this whole new moon took place exactly in alignment with the planet Uranus. And as you were saying, Uranus is always offering us a breakthrough into a whole other reality, a whole different appreciation of things. We say Uranus is very closely tied to Aquarius. And all of us are probably aware of the fact now that we are very much in the threshold of the Aquarian Age. And the movement out of a Piscean Age, which is based on faith and perhaps trust in institutions and governments and kings and queens and all these people, we're now moving into this age of personal responsibility. So this new moon has been very consequential in us really having a good look in the mirror and just saying, am I living in a way of life where I am not just self-reliant, but responsible, being accountable in my own life? What is accenting everything at the moment in terms of planetary movements is Pluto. All of this year, most of next year and the year after, and a lot of last year as well, is in this gateway number 61. And the 61 is this gateway of inner truth. When you just get hit over the head with something and it's just so obvious, whatever I've been believing or thinking about something, now I know. The truth settles in, and it can be quite shocking sometimes to have that realization. On the other end of the human design chart, we've got Saturn and Jupiter sitting together in gateway number 60. And the gateway number 60, in literal terms, we call it the gateway of limitations. Perhaps we're all experiencing something of a bit of a limitation at the moment, whether we're under lockdown or the business is kind of dried up or stopped, we're just having to appreciate the world around us in a very, very different way. So the key, I would say, for this moment, while we are in this state of restriction, and mostly the rest of this year, that restriction, that limitation is going to be upon us. The whole question is, what are we going to do about it? There's a couple of different ways of looking at something that limits us in life. Is it something that's a constant, in which case can we constantly put our attention on it and just deal with it? Somehow accept it. Or is it something that just drags us down, we can't do anything, I can't get past this? And I would just say to all of us, whenever there's a roadblock, whenever there's some kind of limitation like that, there is always a way through. There has to be a way through. So whether the way through is reflecting on an internal way, whether it is actually taking some kind of action to go around it and deal with the situation, that is what's called for. So just to see, we're being, I'm going to say, harnessed with all kinds of difficulties, potential trials, roadblocks, all kinds of things. And it is upon us in a way to recognize that we have the capability in our own way to find the way through. And of course, having worked with human design for so long, I would always say, have a look at your chart. If you haven't got your chart, get your free report from our website, humandesignforusall.com. Get your chart, read the report, and just see, okay, there's these couple of things, type and authority. Type is how you use energy in your life, in any situation. Authority is how you make decisions for yourself in any situation. And basically what human design does, when you trust these two things, you recognize these things about you, it brings you slowly, slowly, slowly into present tense. And in this time of massive transformation at the moment, where the old rules have gone, nobody knows where we're going at the moment. Nobody can lay out a clear pathway for things. Everybody's fumbling around with all kinds of different ideas. When you're in touch with your human design, you get the clue to what life is offering you and how you are naturally designed to reply to that. So just there's my real encouragement for this time as we close out this merry month of April and march our forward into the merry month of May. And May is a consequential month.
Very, very, very. So let's take a look at the first quarter moon. So we had our new moon, which I just talked about. And the next thing that happens in the lunar cycle for the month is that we have a first quarter moon. And that's our first real check-in with the new energy, the new seed that we planted at that new moon. So at this first quarter moon, we get to look at, okay, so how are we doing on this and what further needs to be done? We get to make adjustments or course correct so that we aim ourselves even more clearly towards our goal for the month. So essentially whatever the energy is at that first quarter moon will give us an opportunity to see the coming week ahead. So we're looking at the first quarter moon happened on April, or will happen on April 30th, and then it will go until the 7th of May. So let's take a look. We still have the Sun and Uranus. We've been talking about that because it's a remarkable aspect. We still have them together in a very tight conjunction. We astrologers call it they're together conjunction. And we also have it with Mercury, remember, the planet of communication. So now, the question is, all right, so we need out-of-the-box thinking right now, but when is radical thinking too radical? What we're looking for really with this is a breakthrough about what will actually work, what actually is going to be relevant and will work at this time in terms of whatever new endeavors or whatever new breakthroughs we're having, so we can have phenomenal ideas. I mean, it's a very rich and fertile time for great new ideas. I'm getting several downloads a day. I couldn't possibly, enact all the ideas I'm getting in a lifetime, much less in the few decades I might have left here on the planet. So which ones? Which ones to choose? Out of the inspirations that come, again, back to your design, know your truth, know how to find your truth, be crystal clear about that. If you're not crystal clear about it, for God's sake, in this year, get crystal clear about it. Work with Chetan, have a reading with Chetan. Our website is a huge resource library of opportunities for you to learn about human design and how it works, how to really make it work for you at whatever level that you can invest in, anything from $35 on up to your personal one-on-one deep dive time with us. So take a look. If you're not clear about using your design, this is the most important thing. Besides cultivating your clarity in other ways, this is the most important thing you can do. So what do we have here? We still have this Venus in Gemini in this triangle with Mars, so we still have some possibility of high social engagement. Now normally we'd be out and about engaging, but this is probably going to look more like high social engagement via the web, via our systems of communication, our electronic systems of communication. But it is a high pollination time to share ideas, possibilities, looking at business growth. At the same time, Venus is in this right angle to Neptune, and the news there is that pretty much goes on for about a month. So there are going to be some things that we just won't be seeing clearly. What we're not seeing clearly, because it's sort of fogged up for us, we should have an opportunity to get awareness on that around May 4th or May 5th. But we're still in the Venus retrograde. Venus hasn't gone retrograde yet, but she's about to. Retrograde motion, apparent backwards motion of a planet. I'll be talking about that as we go a bit further. So even though we have breakthroughs and understandings, it's a great time for planning and for redoing a lot, but it's not a great time to launch out with something brand new. That's the news. We have Neptune in aspects that are revolutionizing our values, and that really is the key that's going on here. Our financial systems, our healthcare systems, all of our world systems now calling for a big upgrade. That's the name of the game for humanity. And the last thing I'll say about this period of time, as we head into that first week of May, is that we have had the moving soul destiny for all of humanity in the sign of Cancer, which is about home, family, security. It is now moving in early May, it's moving into the sign of Gemini, which is about cross-pollination and communication. So we're likely to see emerging during this time many of us learning new ways of communicating, new ways of having social connection, and new platforms to put our businesses on, etc. So that will go on for the next year and a half. That's pretty much what I see. Chetan's moving me along.
So just looking into the human design perspective for this last week of April and coming in actually up to the 2nd of May, we're going to have a basic channel by transit, which basically means all of us are going to get affected at the same time all over the world.
With the same channel.
The same particular channel in human design, which I see as the channel of deep thought. And it's just a little, a 5-day period where we get the crown center connecting to the mind center. So you talk about downloads, I'm sure all of us are getting a lot of downloads at the moment. And this week particularly, it's going to be quite intense. And it's a little bit of a foretaste for something that's going to come up on a more permanent basis in the middle of May. So I'm just alerting us all, myself included, there's going to be an incredible tendency to start overthinking everything. And, when you start really thinking, the mind can go all kinds of different directions, conspiracy theories, concepts, ideas, everybody's input. There really can be an overload. And I'm just saying, the flip side of the overload is complete silence in the mind. And really, I think all of us will know that when we've had a moment of realization, when the truth has dropped into our life, the mind has been quiet. It hasn't been able to comment on things. So in a sense, what I'm saying to all of us, use this time to start getting really clear. Is your mind working for you, or are you working for your mind? Is your mind running your life, or are you allowing your mind to give you the guidance and the connection into the world around you in a way that is really transparent and assisting for you? As we go into the merry month of May, May the 1st, it's always a very special day for me. It was my father's birthday, a very celebrated day. Also in the Western world, it's been seen as a kind of day to celebrate, I would say, communism, or there's a lot of May Day parades. And the interesting thing about this is it always takes place in this particular life theme in human design that we call the life theme of incarnation. Incarnation means coming into the flesh. Or we could say, incarnation, right? The beginning of a nation, or a concept, or an appreciation of how things work for everybody. And why I make a point of this is 6 months hence, there will be the catalogued, I'm not sure if it's actually going to take place or not, we'll get to see that, but the United States is having an election 6 months from now. This life theme of incarnation only takes place twice a year, so it's 1st of May, beginning of November. And November the 3rd, it's the exact opposite in terms of days and times where this particular life theme shows up. So a very interesting time to see in these 6 months coming, there's going to be a world that we're not familiar with at all. It's an incarnation, it's coming into the flesh, it's making a new form of things. So just to be aware of that as we enter into May, that we're entering into completely new territory for all of us, everybody on the planet. And in new territory, there's all kinds of new discoveries. And again, I reflect back to being true to your own design, recognizing how to relate to these new things that show up in our paths along the way here, and to not be dismayed and not be put off, because there is always a way through. It's just a case of, can I engage with my creative potentials to find the way through?
Right.
And let's just say, all of us have these gifts.
And not letting the mind, run us around by the nose. I mean, this biocomputer of ours, which is all it is, a biocomputer, wasn't meant to run our lives. It was meant to be in service to us. They say, the mind is an excellent servant and a very poor master. And the reason it's a very poor master is because it doesn't contain wisdom. It's always working on a binary, this or that. It's duality. It can't come to wisdom. It can't come to a still point. So our mind is not our guidance system, but we have a guidance system. And when you know that, our great encouragement to you is to live by that guidance system. Try an experiment for 6 months. You will see that it works.
So talking about a binary, I mean, you might look around the world and see just the binary balance because everyone is trying to engage with life from their mind, from a mental perspective. And with so much energy going in there, it's really not taking us in any direction that really assists us in our growth. So again, coming back to the individual nature, trust in your own nature, and you will find a way through. That's not the question.
Let's look at the full moon. So here we have full moon in Scorpio, opposite the sun in Taurus. And this full moon with some very favorable aspects amidst all the challenges that are also present. So just a bit of backdrop, I want to remind you, the moving soul path for all humanity, for you astrologers out there, the north nodal axis of the moon, moving out of Cancer into Gemini. For an 18-month foray into a new experience of connection and communication, new ways of group meetings, new conversations that challenge our old beliefs. So that's the backdrop of where we all are right now as a humanity, as we have our personal evolution and our journey, but humanity also has its own evolution and evolutionary journey. So we still have this Venus, challenge with Neptune, which can be not seeing clearly around, making choices in love or with money that aren't coming from the highest and clearest vision. So we need to do a deep dive into our values and into our money-making activities to see, are we following our ego, or are we inspired by our higher self and making choices from our higher self? What your authority is in human design is your doorway to the wisdom of your higher self. What the mind is the way to keep you trapped in the ego. So this is the big pivot right now for all of us. The whole world has this opportunity at this point in time. I love the aspects with this full moon. We've got a beautiful, harmonious aspect to Neptune. So for the first time in over the past couple of weeks, we have an opportunity to really get very crystal clear vision. We get to really see it. What are we seeing? We're seeing the truth of ourselves, of our life, the truth for humanity. We're seeing the truth for all of our choices, our relationships, our businesses, our work. And that truth is always friendly. Then the other thing it's doing is the Sun and Mercury together opposite the Moon, forming very favorable aspects with Jupiter and Pluto. Jupiter is about social expansion and growth. Pluto is about deep level transformation. We're challenged now to find the new meaning, or the meaning, of our current challenges. What is the meaning? What's beneath it all? Rather than being focused on all of the events that we're seeing, and glued to the bad news on TV or something. What is go deeper? What is the meaning? What is the invitation right now to us all, to each of us individually, and to us all as one humanity? We've never been more connected. We're a global community. So we have these lovely aspects of this full moon. The full moon bringing to fruition the seed that was planted at the new moon 2 weeks before, and bring us into a place where we can begin to fulfill on what it is that we saw as new life springing up at that new moon. How can we now bring it into a stage of its full blossoming? Whatever that is, whether it's an internal process and you're coming to realization, or it's an external process that you're putting into motion. Either way, powerful, powerful full moon, giving us an opportunity to really another pivot.
So I'm often reminded that in actual fact, coming into this world, coming into the human form, having this life here, we're all explorers. We think everything looks very stable, but in actual fact, we're on this little blue blob in space that is flying through the universe at 76,000 miles a second or something like that, and orbiting around a sun and pivoting and, spinning along the way. So The reality of it is everything looks very much in order, but we're always moving on into a new space. And this is so relevant at this time that we're not going to go back. Things are not going to go back to where they were 3 or 4 months ago. There's no way that's going to happen. So the continuity has been broken. And I'm saying very much, let's be very careful of ourselves, let's be nourishing ourselves, ready for this new age that's coming. And this full moon particularly just struck a chord with me because it happens where the moon is in gateway number 1, which is the gateway of creativity. You say it's in Scorpio, but it's creativity as well from the human design perspective. And it's in the 5th line. And the 5th line is always in a position to forge into something, to be the explorer, to point the way, or to move into something that maybe we haven't considered before. So what I write about this 5th line, I call it magnetic creativity, a means to fascinate people with your creative pursuits. Your creativity is hard for others to ignore, even if no one grasps what is really happening. And it's like, what I'm seeing here is it's kind of opening a doorway to live our lives very differently from what we have done before. And just accept this is the nature of our little sun-moon dance that's going on around here. And to see this is the great opportunity to start expanding our creativity. You know, the path from behind has been closed off. The path in front of us is opening up. And we're being encouraged in so many different ways to explore our individuality, to really trigger those gifts inside ourselves, to try something different and trust it, even if nobody understands what it is you're up to, what we're doing. There are no duplicates in this whole universe here. We're all here to do our very particular dance here. And I just see what looks like an absolute chaos from one side of things can be the opening to an enormous level of creativity on another level. So that was the really exciting thing I felt around this full moon that's coming our way.
You know, something that, for those of you who really like human design, and many of you also follow astrology, use astrology, and what I'd like to do is just give you a second of a quick look at the relationship of human design and astrology and the reason that we use both systems. So when you're looking through the astrological lens, if you look at the sky, and you look at the sky particularly in relation to our equator, to the Earth's equator, or the ecliptic, what astrology does is it divides the sky into 12 compartments that are related to the constellations that have the most proximity to that part of where we are in the sun's movement, or in the apparent sun's movement around the Earth. Because from planet Earth, it looks like the sun is revolving around us. So that's the ecliptic, and it's moving through all 12 signs of the zodiac. With human design, there's a further division of the sky. So, for instance, we're saying, well, the moon's in Scorpio at this full moon. But what human design is saying is it's in Scorpio, but there's 5 different gates in Scorpio. So the nuance with this aspect of Scorpio in gate 1 is the creative element, the alchemical and creative element that's there in Scorpio. So these two systems really work beautifully together, which is why we bring you news from both. So we had the full moon now. We've talked about that week. Moving further into May 14th, into the 3rd quarter moon now. This is the beginning of the closing of the cycle that began at the new moon 3 weeks before. And the 3rd quarter moon gives us a look at, okay, what have we accomplished so far, and what else is needed, what do we need to do to wrap up this cycle? And what we see there is that we're working very deeply with, just the deepest, huge transformation of our values, and the need to have our world systems reflect our values. So that's the work of this particular decade, is rebuilding our world systems, world society, so that it's truly reflective of who we are now, not who we were in the 19th century, but who we are now as a humanity that's forever connected to one another, one planet. So that's the opportunity here that we see. Even though there's some difficult aspects, there's certainly some challenges. Often the greatest new inventions and the greatest new realizations come out of the deepest challenges. We've had Mars in the planet Aquarius, where it's just been happy to be for quite some time. Mars, the planet that has to do with the work that we do in the world, now moved into Pisces, did that on the 13th of May, forming a triangle with that moving soul path for all humanity as it's finishing in one side and moving to another. So what this is saying is that we're given ways, the doors opening to discover new ways of working in our coming times, new highly creative ways of working, of delivering our work in the times to come. There are some changes that are happening now that are not temporary. They will be permanent. The other thing that's of note is that Saturn, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto, all of them in a very short period of time, about to turn to retrograde motion. Retrograde is apparent backwards motion of a planet viewed from the perspective of Earth. And it's unusual to have three planets lined up this closely. Pluto turned retrograde on April 25th, then Saturn on May 11th, and then Jupiter follows behind at this third quarter moon on the 14th. So what's that saying is that we've been in all this revolutionary upset, this total upsetting of the apple cart. And at this point, the change that's happening now here in May is that we begin to go into more of the planning stages. So we've seen the disruption, we get it, there's lots more to learn about it, but still the message is resoundingly clear. So now it's time to begin going into some planning stages, and that will go on for many, many months. The other significant thing is that the planet Venus has now turned into retrograde motion. Apparent backwards motion viewed from Earth, that happens for Venus every 2 years, where it appears she's moving backwards for 6 weeks at a time. So this is going to take us almost all the way through the end of June. And as it does that, it has that challenging aspect I've been talking about, Venus in a challenging aspect with Neptune, challenging our beliefs, our values, taking us into a really deep dive about, what's really in our hearts. What do we believe in our heart of hearts about God, or about Creator, if you will, about our relationship to Source? What do we know to be true? That's the quintessential question of this time. And at this quarter moon, we've got an opportunity to at least begin to formulate some breakthroughs on that question and get some answers. Lastly, we've still got deep, huge transformation happening with the Sun in Taurus in this beautiful triangle with Pluto. It will be exactly trine Pluto on the quarter moon, the third quarter moon, and then also coming quickly behind to trine Jupiter. So again, we're seeing the opportunities. They're beginning to get illuminated for us at this time.
So the 14th of May is consequential from the human design perspective, and I'm looking particularly at the movement of the planet Uranus. Uranus for most of the last year has been in gateway number 27, and I've remarked on 27, it's all about nourishment, how are we feeding ourselves, and how are we nourishing ourselves in our lives? Do we live a nourishing life? Is it a life that's really attached to the material level, or is it a life that's more open to a more spiritual acclimatization? And I very much relate Uranus, because it is the planet of breakthrough, to fifth dimensional, where it takes us out of the rules and the kind of solidity perhaps of the third dimension and opens up another whole possibility in the scheme of things. And on this day, the 14th, the same day that Venus does this turn, Uranus goes into gateway number 24. And for those of you familiar with human design, 24 is in this mind center. It's opposite the planet where Pluto is sitting in the 61. So all of us, from now until late November, we're all going to have this channel by transit between Pluto, which is all about rearrangement on a dramatic level, till we find the truth and what is truthful, and the 24 with Uranus, which is the breakthrough planet that is trying to get us to rationalize what we conceive as the truth. So, you know, I was saying there's a great opportunity now to have a massive mental overload. At the same time, there's that possibility to be able to drop into our truth and to realize, you know, mind opens up a doorway for information or for insight to enter. The question is, what are we going to do with it? Are we going to puzzle it out? Are we going to follow somebody's thought process into a conspiracy theory or some, you know, major medical fix or some political ideal or whatever? Or are we going to allow ourselves to drop into our own truth here? That's the whole crux of this movement. And a lot of people, you're just going to have to realize, a lot of people are not going to be able to handle this. And I would just say, please do not be one of them. Be somebody that knows how to find your center. Do not get drawn off into people's hysteria. Remember, wherever there's a hurricane going on, the best place is right in the middle of it. So there's a hurricane raging around each of us in one way or another. All these thoughts and concepts and ideas and crazy things. Be in the middle of it. Be very reluctant to step out and into the hurricane and getting swept up with everybody else's, following the sheep in front of them, basically, where nobody really knows where they're going, but it's random movement. So that's my real encouragement, you know, literally from 14th of May all the way through late November. That is going to be a consequence for all of us. This huge quantity of downloads coming in. And I'm just going to say for all of us, you know, myself included here, how attached are we to the label that our profession or our status in a family or something in life, how attached are we to that? Do we give ourselves a label? Well, I'm this, you know, this is my whole work, this is my career, this is what I do. You know, are we really attached to that? Or perhaps in this time are we able to see, well, actually there's a little bit more here. There's a few other gifts that I have not been putting energy to. Some creative pursuits that would really like to come through me. I'm a great fan of the Dalai Lama. He has been saying for years, you know, the great breakthrough for humanity is when women entrepreneurs engage. And, you know, this is just the perfect time. You know, Mother Earth and the feminine intelligence that's available here on this planet to start rebuilding things in a very different way than we have done before. And for us men, to see, you know, we're half and half. There's another part of us that is very much the feminine side too. We can also embrace this shift. And for this planet to do really well in the future, this is what I see it has to be.
Men and women also working together
Totally.
harmoniously, right? So as we get further on into May, we move towards another new moon, a new beginning, as the sun moves into Gemini. And when that happens, so the sun enters Gemini on the 20th of May. So when we look at the aspects that we see as the sun moves into Gemini, and the next thing that happens is that we have a new moon on the 22nd of May in Gemini, 2 degrees of Gemini. At the same time that moving soul path for all humanity has moved back into Gemini. So we're seeing, you know, tremendous possibility for having our long-term plans come together, you know, to begin to see what our long-term plans can be. And again, I want to remind you that you have an opportunity with us now to join our Energies and Opportunities program, and what that's going to give you is an ability to move ahead in time and see what's coming up. What does it look like in September, in October, in November, in December, so that can be part of your planning. So we highly suggest you take a look at that. It's on our website, humandesignforusall.com/energies-opportunities. What we see here is that there is the impetus for long-term plans, with this new moon, as it's in this beautiful trine with Saturn. So the planning energy is there to see, okay, get the vision, we can see what the plans are. The frustration is that with a right angle to Mars, which is the planet of action, it really would just lead to frustration if you try to implement too fast, try to put it in motion before the energy is going to really support it. So that trying to push the flow, trying to paddle upriver, comes from, it's a level of impatience that comes from, again, not being in touch with our natural timing and rhythms, which can only happen when we're living in our truth and we're connected to our way of making the right decisions for ourselves. So, big new action, the time for that isn't here yet, but the time for planning it is very much here. We've got, as you were talking about the innovation with the 6124 in, such a powerful, this is going to be huge. New ideas are going to just be flying out the door. We've got Mars at this time on May 24th, Mars, which is our work in the world, in this very creative sign of Pisces and very mystical sign of Pisces, in this beautiful linking aspect with Uranus, which is leading all this innovative new ideas and breakthrough solutions and new inventions. So behind the scenes of all the chaos that we see out there, we have some new things getting born, getting tested, getting refined, and we're going to see the launch of those new things, ideally later in the year, and there's a way to see the exact timing when that would be the best time to do it, and what will happen is that then is going to be the beginning of the groundwork that we lay for us as humanity to say, all right, we are fully stepping into the age of Aquarius. We're done with this age of Pisces thing, right? Of where we're supposed to believe and follow somebody else as the authority. We're stepping into the age of Aquarius where we are the authority. We have access to our own truth. We know how to access it, and we are willing to honor it and live with it. So that's the huge opportunity of this time. We will be, of course, I'm going to tell you this now, and then Chetan, you'll have a little more to say, but we will be back with you on May 23rd, and we'll be going a little deeper into this really pivotal time that happens at the beginning with this new moon.
So the Earth and the Moon do this little dance. They've been doing it for millennia, and there are whole cultures that live by the Moon's movement more than the Sun's movement. And it's not to say that that's our way, but it is to get the reflection that the Moon's movement really does change things in our life. And where it sits when it makes a new moon, which basically means it blacks out for a moment and then starts reappearing for a moment because it hides out behind, it doesn't get the sun's light on it anymore. It's standing in the way of the sun. So it has this moment where we call it a new moon. And this new moon takes place when the moon sits in gateway number 20, which is the gateway called the view, the now. And I've been saying we're all going to be subject to this massive mental overload if we allow it to take over in our lives. The beautiful thing about the 20th gateway is it's the gateway of present tense, right in this moment in time. And so when I write about the third line, it's the line called being objective, developing an ability to watch thoughts and actions impassively. So you think of any problem you've ever had in your life, and the problem is based on things out of the past that you're trying to figure out how to take it into the future. When you're in the present tense, there isn't a problem. In this actual moment now, there is no problem. So whatever might be, I'm going to use the word afflicting us in our mind, this downloads of thoughts and the crazy hurricane of crazy things going on around us at the moment. In all crazy situations, there's always that opportunity to have that present moment. It is said about Buddha, the moment he got enlightened was when he was bombarded by all these crazy thoughts and ideas and how he'd screwed up his life and everything. All the demons of things that he'd perhaps done wrong, and he just relaxed into it and let go of all of it and sat in the middle of it, and sure enough had his realization. And this is available for all of us. It's part of life here on planet Earth. So just to see, do not be discouraged if you just see the whole world around you has lost it. But to remember, allow yourself to drop into the present moment. In this moment, what is it that's really going on? Is there anything going on at all? Or are you just bathed in the truth of reality? So that's my real encouragement. There can be this chance to be very busy, very running around, getting all kinds of stuff done. I would just say, okay, can you watch that activity impassively and just say, okay, I'm taking care of the needful. But at the same time, watching yourself go through that. And watching how the thoughts just bombard us from all sides, and just see, okay, this is something that's going on. Do I have to give my energy to it? So a real key here with this new moon, being in the present, being the witness, being the watcher. So we close out this merry month of May. We will be back with you again. Any closing words for the month?
It's a phenomenal month. Do your inner work. Cultivate that relationship with yourself. Get crystal clear on your decision-making process, and be patient. The world is evolving. Healing is happening. We're in, like, you know, for those of us who have witnessed or have given birth to a child, we're in like the early stages of labor in birth. So you got to breathe through it and keep breathing through it, and it might get more intense, and you just keep breathing through it. And the beauty of it is that as you breathe through it, what happens is a child is born. A miracle. A total miracle. That's what the world is birthing right now. And you're a part of that. We're all a part of that. We'll see you next month.
Bye for now.